Hi, Nomies. We are embroiled in a double mystery here on the MT and me. We got Pearl's engine to turn over, but in the process, we nearly burned up one of the wires going to the alternator. Mystery number 2. What's wrong with that wire? Why is the voltage suddenly trying to burn it up? And why would Pearl's engine only turn over twice and not a third time? So many questions. And today, with the help of our trusty diagnostic tools, we're going to look for some answers. Hello, my Nomies. Welcome back to BMT and me. Well, last week was a voyage of discovery here on the program. We had the mysterious smoking alternator that I more or less accidentally found. And then we had to try and figure out what was smoking. And we're still looking at why. Today, I'm going to do a couple of little checks to try and determine why. Because I have an idea. And I think with a simple test, we can probably see if that's not, well, part of the problem, if not the complete problem. Now, I'll tell you right up front, I still don't have my parts for repair, so chances are we're not going to be able to do actually anything to the alternator and that wire that's almost burned in two, because I'm still trying to track down the connections, and I'm tossing around the idea of just replacing both brushes completely. I don't necessarily think they're bad, but what could it hurt? And it's not an expensive part. So since I've gone this far, we may just do that. I don't know. Chances are that's going to be a couple of weeks on down the road. So we'll kind of cross that bridge whenever we come to it. But in the meantime, I have this idea, and it's based on something that I actually mentioned when I was talking about the alternator last week. I start to say, I wonder if this is shorting to the case at some point, but you know what? The screw itself would short it to the case, so that's apparently not the issue. I've done a lot of research into Mopar alternators from the 60s and 70s and discovered quite a few things. And one of those things is they made a big change in about 1969. This is when they went to an electronic ignition, like Pearl has, and made a few other adjustments in their alternator and charging circuit on virtually all of their vehicles. And one of those changes involved the fact that prior to that, 1969 further back, one of the terminals, your bridging terminals, your field coil terminals on the alternator, had to be grounded to the case because of the way the circuit was designed. But they changed that in 1969 and made the terminals floating. Once again, they float above ground. In fact, if you do ground one, you'll have a severe problem. And I'm starting to think that is part of the problem. Now, the fact that that connection was loose, still an issue. But the reason it was loose, well, that's another thing I'll get to in just a moment. First, trusty multimeter time again. Let's see if whenever we put that terminal back against the mounting screw, if it does indeed ground it to the case. Here's our connection we're dealing with. The screw I've actually put back into the case to keep up with it. You may recall that whenever I first started taking the alternator out some months ago to do a check, I dropped the screw. It's probably still down there on the ground somewhere. And the original spacer is probably still on it. That spacer is kind of important. First though, let's do this grounding bit. Now, we're not looking at any kind of figures. The meter here is just set to continuity. If there's a connection, it makes a noise. So let's put it on that screw and touch the case. Yeah, okay. Therefore, if this is touching that screw, I'm not going to actually install it and put it in. But if we did put this in, that screw would be going through this hole and locking down into the case. All right, that part right there. So if we touch, let's go ahead and put that right there. And if we touch that to the screw, oh look. Oh yeah. I'm going to get this screw back out and show you something here. When I was trying to find this screw to replace the one I dropped, I was just looking for one for the right size, and this one was a little long. So in order to help take up the space and prevent a loose connection, which I ended up with anyway, I found a couple of little washers and I put in there. And I didn't notice at the time, but the screw I dropped also had a washer there. But with one very big difference. The washer that was on there was not metal. It's made of fiber. And because of that, it insulates the screw from touching that connection. Therefore, that connection is not grounded to the case when it's properly installed. And I've got a pretty good idea that the reason we smoked that wire the way we did is because it was going directly to ground when it wasn't supposed to be. That basically meant that the full charge of the battery was going straight through it to ground. And yeah, that wire's not made to handle that. It's not made to handle that kind of current. Because when you turn that key and try to start the engine, this is when your battery amps up to, literally amps up to cranking amps, anywhere 60, 80, 90 amps of power. It's only 12 volts, but that's a lot of current. It takes that to drive the ignition coil, fire your plugs, and get the motor running. So you take something like that and put it through a little wire that way, nah, it's not going to work. It's not going to last. I'm surprised it lasted as long as it did. Lucky I didn't burn it up completely. And I have to admit, I'm worried that I may have damaged something else in the process. Because, well, I mentioned there's a brand new voltage regulator. And this is exactly the way you burn up voltage regulators. You try to put too much voltage or too much amperage through them. I don't think I melted it, but it could have some internal damage. So we'll just hope it is still working. The circuit quit working after 2 starts. That also means I may have blown a fusible link somewhere in the circuit. There are several of those. We'll have to check them one by one. Once we get the connection to the alternator repaired as it should be, and we get the wire replaced, and we know that that connection is not grounding out, then we can see what happens when we turn the key again. Maybe she'll turn over and start. Maybe that'll fix the problem. If it doesn't, then we'll have to start looking for damage elsewhere. And the first thing we'll check will be, did we blow a fusible link? Which would be okay, because that's exactly why you have fusible links. The big thing here is, I think this will take care of the alternator issue. I'm not really sure, but we're going to do it as soon as we get the parts we need, and then we can move on with trying to handle this issue of getting Pearl's motor to turn over a third time. In the meantime, there's something else I want to throw at you today, but it doesn't concern Pearl or the alternator. For this next little discussion, we're going to have to move across the yard to the Equinox. So, let me tell you about another problem I've been having. This one's with my main ride here, my 2006 Chevy Equinox. For a while now, I've had intermittent shutdowns while driving. Now, that's kind of an odd way to put it, but I don't really know how to phrase this. I'll be driving along, and the engine simply dies. Suddenly I realize the motor's not running, I'm just coasting. And once you get to a point, you stop. You put it in park, turn the key off. You can immediately go and turn the key back on. Everything lights up like it's going to start, but when you hit start, nothing happens. And I've noticed that whenever you do that, you don't hear the fuel pump prime. So the fuel pump is not priming, it's not getting power for whatever reason. And when the fuel pump doesn't work, the motor doesn't work. Here's the funny part. Not funny, ha-ha, but funny, wow, what's going on? After you sit there about a minute, try that key a couple of times, nothing happens, and then you're going to turn it and you're going to hear the fuel pump. It's going to prime. You hit start, the engine starts back up, and you can drive back off again. Sometimes it seems to help if you fiddle with the key, take it out, put it back in, or jiggle the steering wheel, or even do something really strange like open the door and shut it, because that resets some of the built-in security things on the car. All of that may have a part in this problem. I'm not sure. That's one reason I want to talk to you guys about it today, my nomies, to get some feedback on what you think is going on. I got a couple of ideas I'm going to share with you, and we're going to look at one or two things, but I mainly am doing this so that you can give me your thoughts on the matter. So maybe it's a bad fuel pump. That's a possibility, number one. Number two, maybe there's a problem in the fuel pump relay. Well, I don't know. Let's take a look at that right now and just see if we can see anything out of the ordinary. Here in the underhood fuse box, this is the fuel pump relay right here. See if we can pull it out maybe. There's no signs of overheating or anything like that. Case looks good. Don't see anything wrong. This one goes to the rear wiper. It's the same relay. Let's pull it out. I know it works. Let's just swap them. That way, if it is an issue with the relay, well, that puts my bad relay on the rear wiper, which is not a mission critical part. Nice to have, don't get me wrong, but I could stand it messing up much more than my fuel pump. So the only way we'll know if this makes a difference is to drive around and see. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'll just have to let you know in the future whether or not it seems to have made a difference. But there's another potential cause that I want to show you, and we're going to have to go inside the cab to talk about this. Okay. Get my hat off in here. There is a documented problem with ignitions in the early generation of Equinoxes and the corresponding Pontiac and Saturn models. Apparently some, not all, but some of the early ignition cylinders and switches they put in had problems. And you can tell that the problems are there because it does not lock the key in the ignition. Most ignitions, you put the key in, and once you turn it to start, turn it on, turn it to start, and then back to on, the key's locked in. It can't be pulled out. Well, that doesn't happen on some Equinoxes, including this one. Now, some of the problems that this has caused include messing with the built-in security features, the circuits that make your door chime when you open it and close it. My driver's door chimes when it wants to. And I've discovered that whenever it chimes, I seem much more prone to get a stall while driving the car. I don't know if there's a connection or not. Maybe I'm looking for connections. I don't know. It rarely chimes with the key in and the door open. But sometimes it does. So that circuit's messed up, okay? There are also some people who claim it can interfere with the security lockdown circuits in the car. The car has a built-in system, tamper-proof system, that supposedly when that system's activated, you have to have the key fob to activate it, which I don't have the key fob to this one. But you have to have that fob to activate it, and once you do, then if someone tries to break in, it shuts down certain power elements, including the fuel pump, so that the car won't start and won't run. There are a lot of people who say that there is still a outstanding warranty bulletin out that says if you have one of the first generation cars of this nature, GM will replace that for free. They'll replace the starter switch and the key cylinder, give you a new key and all that stuff for it, absolutely free. I've got mixed information on that from my online research. Some say yes, some say it won't happen anymore, it's been too long. I don't know. I'm going to have to contact my local GM dealer and just ask them and find out. I haven't done that yet because I'm still kind of exhausting all of my own investigations here first. But I will ask them about that replacement. But this thing with the key is the main thing, and I wanted to show you that. Okay, you put the key in, and first of all, let me tell you, kids, don't try this at home. Because, one, if you can pull the key out, you got a problem. And two, if you can't pull it out and you try to, there's a chance you could damage your ignition switch and lock. So unless you know it's a known problem, I wouldn't mess with that. But in this case, keys in. Let me close this door. Okay, there's on. All my panel lights, dash lights are on. We go to start. And we start up. Engine's running. This is run position. I could put it in gear and drive away and drag my camera all over town, but I'm not going to do that. Now here's the thing. You shouldn't be able to do this. But I can. Smooth as pudding. That key pulls right out and it'll push right back in. Pulls out, pushes in. My phone alarm was going off. Couldn't figure out what that beep was. But it was not my key. It just, whew, boy, that was some weird timing. But nonetheless, like I said, you can pull it out, push it in. So I really need to have that problem addressed. In the meantime, I have refrained from leaving my entire key ring where it hangs. That's not good for your key switch either. If you have a real heavy key ring, that can actually damage or destroy the switch. So I'm just using the key by itself to keep up with it. So that's my big issue here on the Equinox at this time. I would love to know what you think about the problem. Have you ever had an issue with your fuel pump just randomly shutting off as you drive along? Or something causing your fuel pump to randomly shut off? Some other issue with your car or truck? I would like to know about it. I'd like to know what your investigations revealed, or even what ideas you have about this. So let me know what you think, okay? I really would appreciate it. And on that note, I'm going to let you go. I'm hot, I'm tired, and I've just about talked myself out this evening. So, work-wise, we did a little testing on both the Equinox and on Pearl. We didn't do a lot of actual work this week, so I apologize for that. It's kind of a strange week for me. I've got a big high school class reunion coming up here in a few days, so I'm kind of distracted by that. But I hope to show you some of that in next week's program, just so you can see the kind of people I grew up with. Right. Anyway, thank you for watching, as always. Remember, give me your comments. I want to know what you think about Pearl's problems, and certainly what you think about my fuel pump problem here on the Equinox. So let me hear from you. Let's get a discussion going, okay? If you're not a subscriber, you can do that below with one click. Give me the thumbs ups. Check out the mtandme.com. Buy me a coffee. And be sure and join me every week here on the MT and Me. No me's, I don't know what I'd do without you guys. Love each and every one of you. Thanks a lot for watching. See you next time around when we will talk